On the morning of my wedding, while every other bride was putting on her dress with her parents by her side, I was staring at my phone, waiting for a man who had promised he would walk me down the aisle. He never showed up. My name is Rachel Bennett. I'm 29 years old, and I live in Denver, Colorado. For most of my life, my father was the one person I thought would never let me down. But on the one day I needed him most, he chose someone else. This is the story of how my own father missed my wedding for his new wife, and how, 3 months later, the truth about what he'd really been hiding came out in front of everyone who mattered. I wish I had noticed the signs earlier, but I didn't, and what happened next still shocks me. Growing up, it was just me and my dad, Richard. My mother passed away when I was 11, and from that day on, he was everything to me: mother, father, best friend. He worked 2 jobs to put me through college. He never missed a school play, a graduation, a birthday. Every year on my birthday, he'd say the same thing: "Rachel, no matter what happens in life, I will always show up for you." I believed him completely. When I met Daniel, the man who would become my fiancé, my father was the first person I introduced him to. He shook Daniel's hand, looked him dead in the eye, and said, "Take care of my daughter, or you'll answer to me." Daniel laughed. I cried happy tears. For 2 years, our little family of 2 felt whole again, especially after my father remarried. Her name was Vanessa. She was polished, charming, and said all the right things in front of me. I wanted to believe she made him happy. I had no idea what was underneath that charm. The red flags started small, tiny things I brushed off. My father stopped calling every Sunday like he used to. When I'd call him, Vanessa would answer his phone and say he was busy or resting. Busy doing what? I never really knew. At my engagement dinner, Vanessa mentioned, almost casually, that weddings were such a waste of money for people who already basically lived together. I laughed it off as a joke. Daniel didn't laugh. Then came the day I asked my father to walk me down the aisle. He said yes immediately. But when I looked at Vanessa's face in that moment, I saw something flicker there that I couldn't quite name, something cold. That's when I should have paid closer attention. But I had no idea what was coming. 3 weeks before the wedding, my father called me. His voice sounded strange, tight, rehearsed, like he was reading from a script someone else had written for him. "Rachel," he said, "Vanessa's mother isn't doing well. We might need to fly out that weekend." I told him I understood, but I asked him to please try to be there. He promised he would do everything he could. A week later, the final blow came. A text message. Not even a phone call. "Rachel, I'm so sorry. We won't be able to make it to the wedding. Vanessa needs me right now. I hope you understand. I love you." I stared at that message for almost an hour. My father, the man who never missed a single moment of my life, was going to miss the biggest day of it. That's when everything changed. I remember sitting on my bathroom floor that night, phone in my hand, unable to stop shaking. Daniel found me there. He didn't say much. He just sat down next to me and held me while I cried the kind of tears that come from somewhere much deeper than disappointment. "He promised," I kept whispering. "He said he'd always show up." I called my father the next morning, hoping, praying, that it was some kind of misunderstanding. He picked up, but Vanessa's voice was in the background the entire time, whispering to him what to say. He sounded like a stranger wearing my father's voice. "I'm sorry, sweetheart. Family comes first," he said. I wanted to scream, "I am your family," but I didn't. I just said okay, hung up, and felt something inside me quietly break. The wedding came and went without him. My uncle walked me down the aisle instead, and though the day was beautiful, there was a hollow space where my father should have stood. It wasn't until 3 months later that the truth began to surface. My cousin Megan, who worked in travel planning, let something slip during a family dinner. She casually mentioned that she had seen flight itineraries for a luxury Cabo trip under Vanessa's name, booked for the exact same weekend as my wedding. My stomach dropped. Megan didn't know why they went or what was said behind closed doors, but she knew the dates. Vanessa's mother hadn't been sick at all. My father had been on a beach in Cabo while I was walking down the aisle. I sat there frozen, my fork halfway to my mouth, as the first piece of the lie collapsed. I wasn't interested in yelling, screaming, or cutting my father out of my life in some dramatic phone call. I wanted something better. I wanted him to look me in the eye in front of everyone and tell me the truth. My father's 60th birthday was coming up. Vanessa had already announced it would be a massive celebration, nearly 50 guests, extended family, longtime friends, even people from his old job. She loved an audience. She loved being seen as the perfect wife. That gave me an idea. I reached out to Megan and asked her for the flight record showing where my father actually flew on my wedding day. Printed out clean, bold, and unquestionable. I also spoke to my Aunt Carol, who had been deeply suspicious of my father's absence. When I showed her the flight dates, her jaw dropped. She was furious on my behalf and offered to say a few words at the party. I didn't plan a petty scene. I planned a moment of quiet, complete honesty right when everyone would be listening. The night of my father's 60th birthday arrived. The backyard was strung with glowing lights, nearly 50 guests mingling with drinks in hand. Vanessa stood near the 3-tier cake, glowing under the attention, telling a group how family always comes first in their household. When it came time for toasts, my Aunt Carol stood up first, glass raised high. "To Richard," she said warmly, her voice carrying over the crowd. "A man who has always shown up for the people he loves, except, it seems, for his own daughter's wedding, which he missed for a Cabo vacation." The entire yard went dead silent. The clinking of glasses stopped instantly. Vanessa's smile froze completely. I stood up next, calm and silent, walking toward the head table. I placed a white envelope containing the flight record right in front of my father. Vanessa quickly tried to reach out and snatch it, but my father grabbed it first, his hands noticeably shaking. "You told everyone Vanessa's mother was sick, Dad," I said quietly, my voice ringing clear across the yard. "So tell me, why were you on a flight to Cabo on my wedding day?" My father opened the envelope, stared at the dates, and broke. The silence hung heavy as tears filled his eyes. "She gave me an ultimatum," my father choked out, his voice cracking in front of all 50 guests. "Vanessa booked the trip. She told me if I chose the wedding over her, she'd leave me. I was terrified of losing her, so I lied to you." The entire crowd gasped. Vanessa panicked, screaming that he was ruining his own party, but the truth was out, spoken directly from his own mouth. The tension in that yard became suffocating. Whispers broke out among the guests, and disgusted glances were directed at both of them. Within 15 minutes, the party completely collapsed. Guests quietly started making excuses, leaving their drinks behind, and walking out one by one. Vanessa, humiliated and furious that her ultimatum and her fake image were completely exposed, grabbed her purse, slammed the glass door, and drove off into the night alone. My father remained sitting at the table, completely motionless, staring at the paper, crushed under the weight of his own confession. In the weeks that followed, my father called me almost every single day. At first, I didn't answer. I needed time. Eventually, I did. He cried on the phone, begging for forgiveness. He admitted how weak he had been, and how in trying to keep a woman who controlled him, he had broken the heart of the daughter who truly loved him. Vanessa and my father separated a few months later. I won't pretend I felt sorry about that. My father and I are rebuilding things slowly today. It's not the relationship we had before, trust shattered that deeply doesn't mend overnight. But he shows up now, really shows up, to dinners, to phone calls, to the small, quiet moments that actually build a life together. Looking back, I've learned that the people who truly love you don't need convincing to choose you. And sometimes, the truth doesn't need to be shouted. It just needs a quiet room, the right moment, and the courage to finally lay it on the table. If you've ever been let down by someone you trusted completely, I hope you remember this. The truth always finds its way to the surface. And when it does, it speaks louder than any excuse ever could. This story is a work of fiction. Any resemblance to real persons or events is purely coincidental.